September 9th, 3:12 a.m. She hadn't slept for 20 hours. A box she hadn't opened in 15 years. Inside, proof. Proof of why 8 children died, and why revealing it would destroy everything she'd built. "15 years earlier, Sarah O'Connor was 9 years old and had lived at St. Michael's Orphanage for 3 years, since her parents died in a car accident when she was 6. St. Michael's was a grey place. Peeling walls, creaking wooden floors, windows that never let in enough light. 43 children lived there, cared for by 7 nuns and 3 staff members. One of those staff members was Robert Sullivan, but the children just called him Bobby. Bobby was 28 in 1972. He was the janitor, fixed broken things, changed light bulbs, painted walls. But unlike the nuns who were rigid and distant, unlike the director who was frightening, Bobby was kind. He smiled at the children, asked how they were, kept candy in his pockets that he distributed when no one was watching, and Sarah O'Connor, a quiet, shy girl who hid in corners with books, was one of his favorites. "Hey there, little Sarah," Bobby said one July afternoon, finding her in the orphanage's dusty library, reading again. Sarah looked up from her book. "It's about a place where children can fly, Neverland." Peter Pan, Bobby recognized. "You've read that 3 times this summer. I like places where people can escape." Bobby knelt beside her. There was something sad in his eyes. "One day you'll escape from here, Sarah, to somewhere better. I promise." But not everyone at St. Michael's was kind like Bobby. The director, Richard Reeves, was a hard man with a harsh voice and hands that struck too quickly. He ran the orphanage like it was a prison. And in the summer of 1972, there was something wrong with the building. The lights flickered constantly. Outlets sparked. Sometimes in the middle of the night, Sarah would wake to the smell of burning. Bobby noticed. He complained. Asked them to call an electrician, but Richard Reeves said fixing the wiring would cost too much money. Money the orphanage didn't have. Or rather, money he didn't want to spend. August 15th, 1972, 1 week before the fire. Sarah was in the second-floor hallway when she saw Bobby arguing with Director Reeves. She hid behind a column, listening. "The children are in danger," Bobby insisted. "I saw the exposed wiring in the basement. It's a matter of time before nothing," Reeves interrupted. "You're exaggerating, Sullivan. This building has stood for 50 years. Exactly. The wiring is 50 years old. It can't handle the electrical load we use now. It needs to be replaced. And I told you we don't have the budget." Subject closed. Bobby didn't give up. "Then I'll report it to the city, to the safety department." And Reeves moved closer to him dangerously. At the end of the hallway, Sarah saw Jonathan, the director's son, carrying a box of circuit breakers. He avoided looking at Bobby. "You won't do anything of the sort, Sullivan," Reeves said, "unless you want to lose your job. And I guarantee no other orphanage in the region will hire you after I tell them what I know about you." Sarah didn't fully understand that conversation at the time. But she understood the fear in Bobby's eyes, and she understood that Director Reeves was hiding something dangerous. Eight days later, the orphanage caught fire. Sarah finally opened the box. Inside were things she hadn't looked at in 15 years. An orphanage ID bracelet with the name Sarah O'Connor engraved. A faded photo of her biological parents, faces she barely remembered. A yellowed newspaper clipping from the Boston Herald. Orphanage fire kills 8 children. Investigation concludes electrical failure. And at the bottom of the box, wrapped in cloth, was something Bobby had given her 2 days ago when he appeared at her inn door. A sealed brown envelope. Sarah picked up the envelope. Her hands trembled. She knew what was inside. Bobby had told her. Proof, documents, evidence that the fire wasn't an accident. That Richard Reeves knew about the danger and chose to ignore it. That 8 children died because of greed and negligence. And Sarah knew what she needed to do with that envelope. What Bobby would have wanted her to do, but she also knew what would happen if she did. The truth would come out. Her real name would be revealed. The life she'd built as Sarah Mitchell would crumble. She looked at the envelope. Then, at the cold fireplace in her room, Sarah woke to the smell of smoke. At first she thought she was dreaming, but then she heard screams, panicked voices, the sound of the fire alarm piercing the night. She jumped out of bed. The girls' dormitory was full of smoke. Other children were running, screaming, coughing. The lights had gone out. Only the orange glow of fire illuminated everything with a nightmare light. Everyone to the stairs. Sister Margaret was yelling. Sarah ran with the others. But on the staircase, the crowd was too large. Pushing, falls, smaller children being trampled. She was shoved aside, hit the wall, and then she saw the flames, climbing up the old wooden railing, blocking the passage. "Go back," someone screamed. "You have to take the other stairs." But Sarah was separated from the group now. Lost in the smoke, coughing, eyes burning. Couldn't see anything. Couldn't breathe, and then a hand grabbed her, strong, firm. "Sarah, I've got you." It was Bobby. He picked her up, covered her head with his jacket. "Hold on to me." "Don't let go." He ran through the smoke. Not toward the main staircase, it was blocked, but toward a side corridor. Sarah could feel the heat of the fire through the walls, heard the building creaking, groaning, collapsing. Bobby kicked open a door. Storage room. It had a small window. He forced it open, glass breaking. "You're going to have to jump, Sarah. It's not too high. I'll hold you as long as I can." "What about you?" "I'll come after." "I promise." He lowered her out the window, held her arms as long as he could, then let go. Sarah fell into bushes outside, but she was out. She was alive. She looked up. "Bobby!" He was at the window, starting to climb up, but then something exploded inside the building, an explosion of fire and glass. Bobby was thrown back, disappearing into the smoke. "Bobby!" Sarah screamed, but he didn't appear. And the window filled with flames. Firefighters arrived, ambulances, chaos. Sarah was found in the bushes, coughing, crying, burned on her left forearm where the flames had reached her for a second. A small crescent-shaped scar she would carry forever. 35 children escaped. 8 died, trapped on the second floor when the stairs collapsed. And Bobby Sullivan? He disappeared. No body was found. Everyone assumed he'd died in the fire, his body consumed by the flames. But Sarah always wondered, because the last thing she saw before passing out in the bushes was a silhouette crawling out of a side door. A silhouette that looked like Bobby. And then she woke up in the hospital, and everything had changed. Sarah woke up with bandages on her arm and an oxygen tube in her nose. A nurse stood beside her bed. Where am I?" "At the hospital, dear. You're safe now. And the others?" "The children." The nurse hesitated. "Most escaped. But some didn't make it." Sarah began to cry. The nurse held her hand. In the following days, Sarah learned the extent of the tragedy. 8 dead. The orphanage completely destroyed. The survivors being transferred to other orphanages throughout the state. But Sarah wasn't transferred, because something unexpected happened. A couple visited her in the hospital. James and Eleanor Mitchell. They were in their 40s, childless, owners of an inn in Harborview, Maine. Eleanor cried when she saw Sarah. "You look so much like my sister at this age." James held Eleanor's hand. "We'd had been on the adoption waiting list for years. And when we heard about the fire, about the children who needed homes, we'd like to adopt you," Eleanor said. "If you want, if you'll let us be your family." Sarah was 9 years old. She had lost everything. Her biological parents 3 years ago. Her home at the orphanage. Bobby, who had saved her. And now 8 dead friends, and here was a couple offering something she never thought she'd have again. A family. You want to adopt me?" "Yes," Eleanor smiled through tears. "Very much. And can I have a room of my own? With books?" James laughed softly. "As many books as you want." The adoption was processed quickly. Authorities wanted to settle the fate of the surviving children as fast as possible. In October 1972, Sarah O'Connor legally became Sarah Mitchell. New name, new birth certificate, new beginning. The Mitchells were kind. Eleanor treated her like the daughter she'd always wanted. James was gentle and patient. The Seabreeze Inn was welcoming, full of light, the complete opposite of the grey orphanage. And Sarah adapted. She buried the memories of St. Michael's, stopped having nightmares, learned to smile again, learned to be Sarah Mitchell, but she never completely forgot. Especially not Bobby Sullivan, the man who saved her and then disappeared. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like button so YouTube can share it with more people. And if you enjoy this type of video, please subscribe to our channel. Sarah stared at the brown envelope in her hands. 2 days ago, when Bobby showed up at the inn door, she recognized him instantly, even after 15 years. The burn scar on his left forearm matching hers, the kind eyes, the way he smiled sadly and said, "Hey there, little Sarah." He was older, tired, but it was him. "Bobby, I thought you were dead." "I thought so too." For a while, he told her everything that night. How he'd escaped through the side door, burned and in shock. How he'd stolen a car and fled Boston terrified, because he knew something no one else knew. The fire wasn't an accident. Richard Reeves had been warned. There were documents proving he knew about the dangerous wiring, and Bobby had copies of those documents. "Why did you run?" Sarah had asked. "Why didn't you stay to testify?" "Because I was afraid," Bobby admitted. "Reeves threatened me. He knew things about my past, things that could put me in prison. I was young, stupid, scared, so I ran, spent 15 years hiding in Boston under another name." "But Sarah," he held her hands, 8 children died, and the man responsible never paid for it. Reeves died 2 months ago. Old, wealthy, respected, and I couldn't let that happen without someone knowing the truth. So why come to me? Because you're the only survivor I knew how to find, and because—" he looked at the scar on her arm, "because I saved you that night. And then I ran and left you to deal with everything alone. I owed you this. The truth." Bobby gave her the envelope. Documents proving criminal negligence, memos that Reeves ignored, budgets he diverted, testimonies from other staff members who were silenced with threats or money. "What do you want me to do with this?" Sarah asked. "Give it to the press, to the state, to whoever can ensure the truth is told, that those 8 children aren't just statistics in a forgotten file." Sarah looked at the envelope. "And if I do this, my name will come out. They'll discover Sarah Mitchell was Sarah O'Connor, that I survived the fire. I know, and I won't force you." "But Sarah," Bobby stood to leave, "you've built a beautiful life here. You deserve that, but those children deserve to live too. And someone needs to speak for them." "24 hours after that conversation, Bobby was dead, and Sarah didn't know if it was coincidence or if someone had killed him to keep the secret buried. Now she held the envelope he'd given her, the proof that could expose the grave negligence of Richard Reeves. And she had to decide, protect the life she'd built or honor the children who died. Sarah stood, walked to the fireplace in her room, lit a match. The envelope would burn easily, yellowed paper old. In minutes it would be ash. The evidence would disappear. Dead Bobby couldn't tell the truth, and the secret would remain buried with him. She held the match near the envelope, saw the flame dancing, ready to consume, and then she remembered Bobby carrying her through the smoke, how he risked his own life to save her, how he promised her when she was 9 and reading about Neverland, "One day you'll escape from here to somewhere better." He kept that promise. He saved her, and now he needed her to save him. To save the memory of the children who died, to ensure the truth was told. Sarah blew out the match, but she didn't put the envelope back, because there was another option, a third way. She wouldn't turn in the documents now, not while the investigation into Bobby's death was ongoing, not while her name could be connected, not while her life could crumble, but she also wouldn't destroy them. She'd keep them, and when the right moment came, when it was safe, when Bobby was identified, when the truth about his death came out, then she'd turn in the documents, she'd honor Bobby, but on her own time. In her own way, Sarah opened the envelope. Read the documents for the first time. Internal memos from St. Michael's, budgets, ignored safety reports. A memo with a received stamp dated August 12, 1972, 11 days before the fire, and at the end, a list. Children at risk if wiring not repaired, priority maximum. 8 names were circled in red. 8 children who slept on the 2nd floor, near the faulty outlets. 8 children that Reeves knew were in mortal danger. And one of the names on the list, circled twice, was Sarah O'Connor. Sarah understood in that moment. Richard Reeves didn't just allow those children to die. He knew specifically which children were in danger, and chose to do nothing. She should be dead. Her name was on the list. She only survived because Bobby saved her, and now Bobby was dead, and she had proof of the crime. Sarah went down to the kitchen when the sun began to rise. She'd made her decision. She would keep the documents, but not burn them. And when the time came, when Bobby was identified, when his killer was found, she'd turn everything in, but first she needed to do something she'd been putting off for 15 years. Something Bobby would have wanted. She went to the phone, dialed a number she kept in a locked drawer. A number she'd never called. A recording answered, Massachusetts State Records Department. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sarah left a detailed message requesting instructions on how to request copies of official records from the 1972 fire. She wrote down the address to send the request by mail. The official process would take weeks, but it was a start. At 9 a.m., Sheriff Tom Bradley returned to the Seabreeze Inn. Sarah, I need to ask you a few more questions. Of course, Tom, come in. He showed her a photo. Not the Polaroid of the dead man, but an old photo. 70s, faded. A young man smiling in front of St. Michael's Orphanage. I got this photo from the Harbor View Gazette archives, Tom explained. It was from a 1971 article, when the orphanage received a donation. Do you recognize this person? Sarah looked at the photo. It was Bobby, 15 years younger. Before the fire, before everything. And she did something that surprised even herself. She told the truth. Part of it, at least. Yes, I recognize him. Tom leaned forward. From where? I grew up at St. Michael's, the orphanage that burned in 1972. He was one of the staff members. Robert Sullivan, Bobby. He saved me that night. Tom looked at her with a mixture of shock and understanding. You're a survivor of the fire. Yes, I was adopted afterward. By the Mitchells. They changed my name. Gave me a new life. And I never told anyone because I wanted to forget. I wanted to leave that place behind. Tom sat down heavily. Why did you lie when you saw the body? Because I was afraid, Sarah admitted. Afraid that if I admitted I knew him, my entire life would be exposed. That everyone would discover who I really was. And I wasn't ready for that. But you're ready now? Sarah looked out the window, at Harborview waking under the morning sun. No, but Bobby deserves the truth. And the children who died in that fire deserve for someone to remember them. Even if it means I have to remember too. Tom leaned forward. Sarah, do you think Bobby was murdered because of the fire? And Sarah, for the first time, allowed herself to say what she really thought. Yes, I think so. What Sarah didn't tell Tom was about the envelope, about the documents that proved criminal negligence, about the list with her name circled in red, she would tell. But not yet. First, she needed to understand what happened to Bobby, who killed him, why, and then when she knew, she'd turn everything in and let the truth, the whole truth, finally come to light. In the next video, we'll discover David Chen's story, the man who claims to be an immigrant from Hong Kong, an honest worker, a respected family man. But David Chen is hiding a secret even bigger than Sarah's, because David Chen doesn't even exist. And the person he really is was at the orphanage the night of the fire. And Bobby Sullivan knew it. Some stories are about discovering the truth. This one is about the price of hiding it. And sometimes the price is your own identity. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and share our video to help us spread our stories.